This is a short video looking at the enclosure of Lodge Park and the design of the parkland in the 1620s when it was enclosed, well before, 100 years before Bridgeman's design. John Dutton inherited the estate in 1618 and by the mid-1620s was creating a new park at what we call today Lodge Park. Here's a little about John Crump Dutton. Crump because he was a bit physically deformed, and you probably know most of this already. Enclosing the park in the 1620s was quite something. The area was used for agricultural arable farming, and he enclosed it within probably a fence to start with and then a wall, and it was no longer ploughed. Some of the field boundaries you can still see on LiDAR existing where they once stood. It's a fascinating area, and this is just one little facet that I'm going to discuss. We have to sort of remove from our minds Bridgeman's layout, and in very crude terms I've highlighted some key features of the Bridgeman landscape that we should ignore when considering the earlier landscape underneath. So that sort of T-shaped block with the trees on either side of the big avenue and the huge clump of trees that now sit around the grandstand, they didn't exist in the 1620s. So imagine a blank landscape looking eastward. It's beautiful rolling countryside to the east. It's less interesting to the west, where today the front of the grandstand faces. So imagine that landscape of being simply ploughed land, open land, probably not many trees, one or two as we'll discuss, but that's the landscape which Crump Dutton enclosed. Bridgeman's later plan in the 1730s, over 100 years later, didn't really take account of the alignment of the grandstand. As you'll see, it doesn't sit as you might expect it to sit otherwise, facing down the Grand Avenue. It's skewed to the side. So here's the key alignment, and I'm proposing that the grandstand building that you can see there on the right hand side from above is aligned in a particular direction. Why was it aligned in that direction? Well, if you draw a perpendicular line through the centre of the grandstand and extend it vaguely to the west, you see it hits exactly the triple hundred point. So what is a triple hundred point? The triple hundred point here is where three different Anglo-Saxon administrative areas meet at a single point. It's now a parish boundary, and in those days was a hundred boundary. So the line up of the grandstand coincides exactly with that triple hundred point. Could be a coincidence. If we then extend that same line, the perpendicular line, through the grandstand, through the triple hundred point, and extend it further, it hits two ancient oak trees. These are oak trees which, at least one of which is suspected of being planted before 1492. So they're the two oldest oak trees in the parkland, and would have been already big 140-year-old trees by the time Crump Dutton enclosed the parkland and built the grandstand. And that's in a straight line. Could be a coincidence. We take it a step further and follow that same line all the way. It hits exactly an ancient stone bridge on the River Leach. Could be a coincidence. So this line that runs through the grandstand, through the triple point, through the 540-year oaks and onto the stone bridge, that the bearing, the compass bearing of that alignment is 289 degrees. So here's an observation. If we go from the northeast corner of Lodge Park to a very prominent corner at the bottom end of Sally Coppice, what I'm calling Sally Coppice Corner, that line is exactly 289 degrees, exactly parallel to that first line we saw. That could, of course, be a coincidence. And then I noticed something peculiar. It doesn't look exactly like a right angle on this aerial photograph, but I've confirmed it is a right angle using a geographic information system. So taking a perpendicular line, the yellow line that is perpendicular to both the central line and the northern line, that lines up exactly with the canal lake that has been built into the bottom of the valley in Lodge Park. Now that is a remarkable coincidence. It could be coincidence or it could be a design. The canal lake is quite interesting. Historic England have dated the canal there to early 20th century for some unknown agricultural purpose. That's frankly absurd, and I'm going to show you why that's absurd. Other people attribute it to Bridgeman, but this observation suggests it could be older still and could be dated to the time that the parkland was first enclosed in 1620. Now, if I take another parallel line, a red line, from the bottom end of that canal-like lake, it leads to a prominent corner of the parkland at Slaughter Barn. So what we have here, perhaps, is what I'm calling an armature, which is a layout of the parkland from the 1620s, where the instinct of the landscape designers was to make things geometric. It would be surprising if the grandstand didn't line up with anything, and it doesn't. But the accumulation of all those points that I'm showing on that image there, I think is remarkable and worth consideration. It's difficult to dismiss. So let's go back to the canal. Does that predate Bridgeman? Well, if we look at Bridgeman's plan that was rediscovered in the 1990s, this seems to show very faintly, if you look very carefully, it shows that rectangular canal-shaped lake underneath his proposed grand serpentine lake, which proved impossible to build. Now, there are other faint features elsewhere on Bridgeman's plan, which I'm going to show in a second. And they seem to denote pre-existing elements in the landscape, different from Bridgeman's proposals that are filled in bold. So here's Bridgeman's plan, which I've sort of turned on its side so we're a little bit more familiar with it. So it's north, roughly towards the top. Bridgeman's serpentine lake is there in the centre, that was never built because the geology proved impossible. But if you look very, very carefully at the zoom in that I've done on the right hand side, you can see that on Bridgeman's plan there's an outline of a straight canal of exactly the right dimensions in exactly the right place. So to me that means potentially that the canal there predated Bridgeman in 1729, and therefore the obvious timeline for it might be the 1620s when the parkland was first enclosed. Let's think about how Crump Dutton might have approached Lodge Park. That straight road that runs past Lodge Park from the A40 didn't exist until the 1770s. So it's not as though Lodge Park was a place approached down that road. When Crump Dutton was bringing his important guests to view his fantastic gambling lodge, to come and spend a night of perhaps booze and gambling in what at some stage was called a casino, how would he have got there? Well, he could have come down the parish boundary that sort of runs down the side of the old deer course, but it's not a very impressive approach. I'm suggesting as a conjecture, I can't prove this, that perhaps the approach was made past the Sally Coppice Corner and then down through that magnificent valley that runs roughly north to south, past the canal, through that wonderful amphitheatre that sits by the L of Lodge Park on that image, and then follow the parish boundary round up and straight into the what is now the back end of Lodge Park. That dotted line, the black dotted line, denotes both the course of a track and also the parish boundary. I think that's worthy of a thought. This is a LiDAR image of Lodge Park, and you can see that in places that track is visible. So there was a track at some point that ran down past the canal. You can see that very clearly delineated track as it runs through the amphitheatre, and then the track bends round and runs up what is now the middle of that main avenue directly to what is now the back end of the grandstand. So I think it's a reasonable conjecture, but I can't prove it. But if you were a host trying to impress your important guests, I think this is a dramatic approach to the grandstand casino. Here's a view as it is today, and I've put in that grey track as it might have followed. What's interesting is that grey track is also the parish boundary. Normally parish boundaries in this sort of place in the bottom of valleys would follow the track of the river, but here it follows this particular clear track, which is interesting. And here's an artist's impression where I've filled the lake in with a bit of water and put a man with a boat in it, just to give you a sense. And you can see that big amphitheatre just to the right of the lake, and that's where the track runs round. This historic lake here, historic England, describe it as probably early 20th century agricultural activity, but the fact that it's shown on Bridgeman's plan blows that out of the water, and I think given an interpretation of Bridgeman's 1729 plan, it could be 100 years earlier. Just remember that lake, that straight line rectangular lake, is exactly perpendicular to the alignment of the grandstand. So let me know if you think what you think about first of all the armature, the layout and the alignment of the grandstand related to some of the features within the parkland. Obviously Bridgman's design and other things have laid over the top of it, but I think that's a reasonable impression of how in the 1620s the parkland was laid out. And if you're interested in my next presentation, I will examine in more detail the lower lake at Lodge Park. It's particularly interesting because of some of the implications for its design, and has a conclusion within it that affects Sherborne as well. I hope you find that interesting. I hope my ums and ahs aren't too distracting, and I hope that this has been useful or interesting. Thanks.